Position 1, exactly where he wants to be, considering that he's leading the championship, is Garth Tander from Toll HSV. Just to bring you up to speed, remember this: Tander on 530 points, Lowndes 510, Whincup 501, and Rick Kelly 496. Here's the circuit.
2.41 kilometres and 8 corners, characterised by this extremely tight hairpin left-hander first gear. Huge requirement for a hot stop under brakes. Great passing opportunity down there, and the sweeper down the back straight is a fantastic bit of road. The cars are extremely quick there, 260 odd kilometres an hour. It also opens up into a passing opportunity down the left-hand side. Great spectating to be done around this track. About 56% of the lap is at 100% throttle. In this race, they'll start with a whisker under 90 litres of fuel, so some drivers being warned going into the race that the cars will be heavier than they've experienced over the course of the weekend and in practice yesterday. Great sight, and they sound fantastic as they wind their way opposite the pit area. Hard on tyres, certainly on the right rear, hard on brakes. Important to have the car balance just spot on, and a very enjoyable racetrack, as I said.
Over the course of the last 4 years, Holden has started on pole position, 2004, 5, 6 and now 7. And the last 2 years have been won, of course, by Garth Tander. So Russell Ingall in 2004, the last Falcon to take out the overall round victory. Well, let's take a look at the Fuso grid for race 1 of round 13. Tander versus Mark Winterbottom on the front row of the grid. Remember, Tander first in the championship. Jamie Whincup against Lee Holdsworth, who equals his best ever start in the V8s. Whincup, of course, third in the championship. Next row down, Lowndes and Stephen Richards. Craig Lowndes, second in the championship. And here we find Rick Kelly, who's fourth in the title race, up against Mark Skaife. In the top 10, Cromley, there are 6 Fords and 4 Holdens. And I'm starting to wonder who's covering who. You're convinced that nobody's covering anyone.
No, I know these blokes too well. They'll tell you that they'll be doing all those things, and then the lights will flick and that's it. It's all about self. Interesting thing is the 4 championship contenders are arranged on the grid in this order: 1, 3, 5, 7. They're all down the left-hand side of the road. I wouldn't want to be on the outside of them going down to turns 1 and 2. It's a very brief run down there, up and over the hump. They'll only pull 1 gear to 2nd gear. Look at some of the people down the order here who perhaps are scratching their heads as to why that may be. Todd Kelly, one of the poorer qualifying sessions that he's had in quite a while, since 2005, in fact. And some other fellas that you would not expect to see down there. For example, Russell Ingall, position 23. His teammate James Courtney further behind. Jason Bright, they had some brake strife. They just couldn't get the car to stop, didn't have sufficient bite. And that was a real puzzle, because yesterday Bright was 7th in practice and they expected to go well in qualifying. Jason Bargwanna as well, that team, and his teammate, in fact, Max Wilson, had a good run, but they've come off the back of a string of top 10 results. Can't understand where the performance went in qualifying.
Jason Bargwanna was up there in the practice session, but as you said, dipped out the back door in qualifying. Shane Van Gisbergen will start from the rear of the grid in position number 31. He's making his debut at Simmons Plains, and you also saw the name of Marcus Marshall. He will be behind the wheel if you've just joined us at car number 11, with Jack Perkins sitting out the remainder of these rounds, been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Hope Jack's going okay. Out on the warm-up lap they go.
Well, SBR have made some major changes in both those motor cars since qualifying. They qualified badly indeed. Spring changes for James Courtney's car to try and get a better balance around Simmons Plains, and front-end geometry changes for Russell Ingall's car to try and generate some more temperature in those front tyres. 26 degrees as opposed to 31, the track temperature. So a lot of teams now pressuring up the tyres to around that 31, 32 PSI to try and compensate. And just quickly caught up with John Bowe across the weekend. The emotion is running high as he starts his last race here at Simmons Plains. Almost a tear starting to well up. I talked to his team boss, Paul Cruikshank. I said, he's getting a bit soft. He said, I know. I've told him, have a teaspoon of concrete and harden up a bit.
They breed them tough, don't they? Speaking of breed them tough, Lee Holdsworth from Gary Rogers Motorsport starting on the 2nd row of the grid, not intimidated at all by the big names around him. He thinks they're going to have to race for the championship while he is racing to win race number 1. The only bloke he's worried about is the guy behind him. Stephen Richards and Lee Holdsworth have some history. Richards has, well, taken a few shots in the back of Holdsworth's car over the years.
Here's Mark Scaife. Yeah, some good lineups, isn't there, Barretts? There's some people with scores to settle all over the shop. And Daniel Gibson mentioned John Bowers' second last start in the championship. This will be his 224th championship start, while Scaife is now on 199, not out. It's kind of weird to, hear John Bower talking about the emotion. Such a cool, calm and collected character. He's 53 years of age, but this place in particular has special significance for him. And we do get sheets from each team giving us lowdowns on the state of the car, state of the drivers, what they've been up to. And right at the top of John Bower's list, emotional. Really starting to hit home that this is the end of the road.
All the emotion will give way to aggression in a few moments, though, because this run over that little hump down to turn 1 and then the left-hand at turn 2, it's all going to happen down there. John Bower, he's down the order, doesn't want to be where he is on this grid at the moment, down in position number 25. But he's got some good company around him. There's James Courtney. Traditionally, you get aggravation through turns 1 and 2, and then you get more aggravation up at the hairpin at turn 5. 31 V8 supercars into small areas do not go.
JB went from pole to victory here in 1995, the year he won the championship. Garth Tander starts on pole at Symmons Plains for the first time, but he's won here the last 2 years straight.
Safety car, you can just move up behind those emergency vehicles, please. Roger that.
Such a nervous wait, such a crucial time in the title race of 2007. Will the top 4 get a clean run?
Someone's giving one of their cars a fair old free rev down there at the moment. You can hear in the background, I wouldn't want to be a valve spring when I grow up.
Grid set.
Clear conditions for the Tasmania Challenge of 07. This is it. This is crunch time in the championship. Tander and Winterbottom at the front. Winterbottom's got the jump on him. Garth has to settle in close for second.
May not be over yet because Winterbottom had trouble to turn it, and there's more trouble back there at turn 2. You can almost then Bowers in strife, damage there in the front of that car. They've all backed up through 2. You can just about set your watch by it. Tander did get back in front. Winterbottom was very quick into 2, overshot a little bit. Now this is the other critical area, the hairpin. There's always trouble at the hairpin.
So Tander got it back, Winterbottom goes into second, then the 2 team Vodafone cars. You heard it right there, yellow conditions.
I suspect the tyre bundle might have been shifted down there. There could be a car down there as well.
Very important to note that Craig Lowndes, there it is, very important.
Just at turn 1 now, mate, just bank it up.
That Craig Lowndes has got in front of Lee Holdsworth, so Lowndes has paired up with his teammate Whincup.
It was just a guess on my part, but when you see somebody go through the grass down there, you almost bet that they pick up that tyre bundle and drag it onto the racetrack. Here it all is again in replay. And Bower got into the back of Ingle, who was getting into the back of Canto. Canto was in the grass at that stage and doing the railway shunting of the tyre bundle onto the track with the dirt with it.
See, I told you everybody would be covering everyone else. They've gone hard straight off the list and gone straight into the tyre barrier, so not a lap yet done.
There was a bit of discussion earlier in the weekend about that tyre bundle not being placed down there, and if the driver behaviour was such that they didn't shortcut the curb too much, then it may have been removed. Clearly, they shortcut the curb when it was removed, so it got placed back on there, and not surprisingly, it gets picked up by a car and bundled onto the circuit. It happened last year as well. There's a premium requirement for any international engineers out there at the moment if they can come up with a better design than a tyre bundle.
It's meant to be a 50-lapper, 120 Ks, and of course the 31 starters. Pit window opens between laps 5 and 35. Showers are still on the radar. Off we go. Now it's a single file start, so it'll be a much, much cleaner run. Down to turns 1 and 2. Tander leads it through. Whincup is second. Sorry, Winterbottom second. Whincup third and Lowndes fourth. Then Lee Holdsworth, Stephen Richards. There goes Rick Kelly.
Doesn't that look and sound fantastic as the cars negotiate the bridge at turn 4? This is the hairpin. Tyres are nice and grippy at this stage. Winding up to 260 kilometres an hour. Vaguely pointing towards the north, pointing towards Launceston, and then turn 7, third gear, left-hander. Short shift into fourth gear here. The car balance is always very difficult to organise for this corner. They tend to want to oversteer. That's the back of the car sliding around and across those little humps that take you down to turn 2. And the drivers will quickly wake up to the fact that the tyre bundle's gone AWOL, and they'll get hungry and use more of the racetrack and a bit of grass as well.
Winterbottom did the fastest of that first flying lap, 53.13. He was only 6/100ths of a second quicker than the man in front of him. 53.197 for Tander, Lowndes in the 53.4.
Scare just before the race with a substantial sprinkle of rain. Everybody flushed out of the garages and out onto the pit wall, doing the 360-degree lighthouse sweep to see what the place looked like. A few furrowed brows, but then the weather blew away, so we've got a nice dry track at the moment, but we may not be over the hook. Off the hook, I should say, because the forecast was for the possibility of ongoing showers through the afternoon. 52.72 for Garth Tander.
Stephen Richards gets some clean air. He's hovering behind Lee Holdsworth. Holdsworth in 5th. He started from 4th. Got done in by Lowndes on that first half a lap. So Richards has maintained his position of 6th. Behind him is Rick Kelly.
He's the lap record holder, Stephen Richards. 2005 at 52 even. Garth Tander in discussion, working out what the tyre pressures should be for the incoming tyre set. He feels that the tyres on the back of the car at the moment are still coming up to pressure and temp.
As you'd imagine, like most things in Stephen Richards' consistent career, he's been consistent.
Window is open.
Again here, 6 starts before this one at Symonds Plains. Twice he's had a second place the races, and he was second in 2005 overall.
52.4 for Garth Tander. Nearly 8/10ths of a second margin over Mark Winterbottom. Here's Lowndes, he's 4th. Where are the championship contenders? Tander's 1st. Whincup is 3rd. Lowndes is 4th. Rick Kelly is 7th. Rick started from 7th. He's maintained that spot. Now look for some people to peel off and take their compulsory pit stop, and Jamie Whincup does just that.
So Team Vodafone make the first play.
Watch your pitting. Keeping your slide off. Position. Rear tyre only. I'll talk you through this if there's any traffic at this stage. Traffic looks very light.
Someone's brushed the edge of the road at turn 8. That's the dust.
That was perfect.
Beautiful stop. Now, remember last year when some people were leaving the pit lane, they were shortcutting the circuit, jumping onto the grass. There's a tyre bundle out there now, you'll see it. It's just a little further left than that. 52.3 Garth Tander. 1 second the margin between Tander and Winterbottom as Jamie Whincup rejoins. A very efficient, clean stop, and he's come out in good clean air, and that's what they'll have been banking on, putting another tyre set on. We didn't quite get the car pulled up then. Another tyre set on the rear, and then get 2 or 3 clear laps. And relative to those around him that he was racing with at the start of the race, if they have any issues, he'll make a spot on them.
But Winterbottom has got in front of Garth Tander.
Yeah, they asked Garth whether or not he had any flat spots, and he said no, it's okay. So he must have made a small mistake. And I think that was Clinton Wilson for Mark Winterbottom. So this will be interesting to see what they do strategy-wise in both teams. Does Tander stay out and try and recover from having lost that ground, or will he follow him in?
He took it deep into turn 7. So
No.
Winterbottom goes, Tander stays out.
I think that's a good move for Tander if he's got car speed.
Watch your pit lane speed, mate. Come in and stop on the board. Remember there's concrete in the front, so don't slide through. It's a nice clear run out, mate.
Tander's the race leader once more. It's a 1.2 second margin over Lowndes.
Go, mate, go. Okay, let me slide off, mate.
A little bit slow to get away for Frosty.
An awkward position there for that team, isn't it? Half asphalt, half concrete.
Look at this. This is critical. There's the tyre bundle I made mention of. And he comes out behind Jamie. Oh, and off the road, Lee Holdsworth, and picks up a heap of dirt in the process. And he'll have to leap that curb, which happened to him in qualifying right there. And it's a big one.
Only just got back in time. One of the Tasman cars came zipping on past. That looked like Greg Murphy. Now Craig Lowndes is in.
Traffic in pit lane looks reasonably light, so I'll still talk you out if I can.
And there's Garth Tander at Scaife as well.
Now on the issue will be the HRT coming up behind. Clear, away you go. Go. Push pit exit lane, what's the sign your white line?
Here we go.
This is going to be so close.
Got him.
Tander shoots out in front.
So holds the lead.
Great job, mate. Eyes forward.
And remembering that many drivers are yet to stop. So when we talk about the lead, it's the corrected order after the compulsory pit stop. And Stephen Richards leads the race at the moment from Rick Kelly. Max Wilson, who started 10th, is third. Then Will Davison, who started 11th. And in fact, Richo's now in. And Rick Kelly now leads the motor race.
Just amazing. There's no time to blink when they re-enter. Richards, Dumbrell, Marcus Marshall, 3 cars in pit lane.
It takes 32 seconds to transit this lane, do this stop and leave again. And it's only a 51-second lap, so it's easy to be lapped here.
Okay, mate. Cold rears.
Watch this one. There'll be traffic coming.
Cold tyres, no traction. You hear the car roar under revs. It always scares me when they rejoin there. So Richards has done a good job here. Slides the car under the Falcon Bridge.
So effectively that's 4th, but Rick Kelly leads the race. Yet to pit. Max Wilson, Will Davison make up our top 3.
So Tander's back in 15th at the moment, but the first in the queue to have done his compulsory stop, followed by Whincup Winterbottom. Will Davison. The concrete here is particularly slippery, especially
Go. Pit lane's all clear. Good job, mate.
when it rained a little earlier. We have to manage that extremely carefully. They've done an awesome job down here in boosting the quality of the facilities, the pit lane complex, the building, a lot of the works around the racetrack, and rewarded by a huge crowd every year that we come to Tasmania. News also that in 2009, V8 Supercars will now visit, it's been confirmed, Townsville 2009, a street race. And Lee Holdsworth in the garage now as a result of all that dirt ingested in the front of the car. Possibly some other damage there as they figure out what to do.
Well, that's a pity too, because he put in such a good qualifying performance to start from 4th. This is what happened in Leeds. Like Neil said, exactly what happened to him in qualifying. I tell you what, he only just got back in as the traffic came along. Snuck it around the big pond sign, put it back on the road, held his breath, found his spot, but now he's in the garage. We're riding with Mark Winterbottom. Down to turn 5. Heavy, hard hairpin. Wah from Jamie Whincup to get it through there.
Kelly's in the pit lane now, so his brother Todd's taken the lead of the race.
Over now.
Well, this stop here for Rick Kelly was the on again, off again, on again. They couldn't work out why he wasn't stopping. No comms for Rick Kelly. The boys were repoing the stop every time he went past. Finally, they got a signal through to him to make him stop.
He will come out on corrected Gibbo in 6th position. The race leader is Todd Kelly, Steve Owen is 2nd, and James Courtney 3rd. But we go down to 11th, where we find those who have pitted. Tander,
Winterbottom really out of control down there into turn 5. Sorry to speak over you, Matthew, but he was well out of shape. And for just a moment, looked like he may have made contact with the Vodafone car.
Well, the order could have changed while I was speaking anyway. It was Whincup, then Winterbottom and Richards. So I think Frosty will find Stephen Richards right behind him at the moment.
Well, Lee Holdsworth, it doesn't get much more heartbreaking than that. Front of the car filled with dirt and not good.
No, it's really disappointing for the boys. I mean, we've worked so hard to get it up the front of the field and get away from all the carnage. But and we were doing quite well there in that race. But yeah, just locked a brake into turn 1 and filled the air filters up with dirt. So just lost a lot of power and there's no use running on. We'll just destroy the engine.
That's sad, mate. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, thank you.
Todd Kelly leads the race and he's coming in for his compulsory stop this time round. Garth Tander here's 11th. He has control of this field, the pole sitter and the points leader.
Steve Owen is the race leader, yet to pit. Garth Tander is in 9th, the first of those to have taken his compulsory pit stops. Lights are on for car 16. He is the corrected leader. Jamie Whincup, uncorrected, is 2nd. And Mark Winterbottom in the top 3 of those to have pitted. And there's Stephen Richards. And of course behind him is Craig Lowndes. So once they've all completed the pit stops, as Russell Ingall comes in, we'll be able to show you exactly how the championship stands. Lap per lap. The great thing about this circuit, Cromley, is that everything happens so quickly. Pit stops are quick, re-entry's quick. That heavy hairpin slow.
And your fortunes can change very quickly here as well.
And then down the back here, up to turn 6, touching 260 plus with the tailwind.
Yeah, yesterday they were into a very stiff headwind, which slowed them down a bit today. It's 260 or more. 100 kilometres an hour here, just at the apex, right there of turn 7. Building speed through turn 8, short shifting, not using all of the revs, then briefly in 5th gear, up over this little jump, turn 1, kink to the left, 2nd gear, turn 2, only 90 k's here. This is turn 3, then turn 4 beneath the bridge, and pretty well flat, but teetering, sliding just a little, and then 5th, 240 kilometres an hour down here. 3rd, 2nd, 1st, and right in the middle of the corner, just 50 kilometres an hour, and you punch it out of 1st gear quickly.
Heading north, this is up to turn 6 that we say, 265 kilometres an hour for Craig Lowndes. Interesting too, when you run through the form guide of the championship contenders, the man we're on board with has had 5 race wins at this circuit, 2 round wins and 1 pole position. Garth Tander, the man who leads the championship, also has had 5 race wins, 2 round wins and now a pole position. Rick Kelly,
We're starting to come on lap traffic now, Craig.
he's won here before in a race and also had an overall podium, but Jamie Whincup has yet to have a top 10 race finish at Symonds Plains.
This is what happened to Tander earlier down at 1 and 2. He just arrived a little bit too quick. We found the replay for you. So he arrived over the jump, locked it up a little bit, didn't run too far wide, but wide enough to allow Mark Winterbottom through. And then he was released off the hook when Winterbottom came in for his compulsory pit stop. Squeezed a couple of quick laps and then really got out of jail with that one, but that was close.
Paul Morris in the Ceremony Wines car back in the garage at the moment. They got a knock on the front, which actually knocked out the brake duct and left them with no brakes. So they're currently working on that to get Paul back on track.
So Paul Morris from Team Ceremony and Owen Kelly driving the other car, car number 39. Owen's down in 22nd. Tasmanian-born driver. He's had a couple of cracks at Symonds Plains, but admits to giving a lot of experience away to the other guys here.
So still to stop, James Courtney, Jason Bright, Dean Canto Jason Bargwanna, and then the first of those that have stopped, Garth Tander in 5th. Rick Kelly here 10th at the moment. And there's the race leader, James Courtney, 4-second margin over Jason Bright. Shocking qualifying earlier on after running pretty reasonably yesterday.
Well, he's easily the worst qualifier of the year. In fact, it's the worst qualifier of his young career, James Courtney, 26th.
Well, there's been some quick work down in the pits, boys. Team Vodafone have shown them how to do it today. Craig Lowndes' stop was 3.7 seconds. Jamie Whincup, 3.9. Next best was Garth Tander, 4.1 seconds. But Team Vodafone showing him how it's done in pit lane.
Gee, that's quick, isn't it?
It is when you go to handle one of those rattle guns and you pick up a wheel and tyre and you realise that it's not an easy thing, or they're not an easy couple of things to manipulate. And fraught with danger, it's so easy to just not quite get the wheel on the lugs, and then you do up the nut and it hasn't properly located on the hub, and disaster can follow. Cross-threading wheel nuts, there's a million things that can go wrong. But these fellows do such a beautiful job of manipulating the gear, and the cars come and go in a heartbeat.
And not only that, they do it under pressure. That didn't look as slick, though, for the WPS entry of Jason Bargwanna.
The sky looks pretty reasonable all around the racetrack at the moment, so I think the weather threat is past for now. Yeah, the left rear was a little bit slow on Jason Bargwanna's car. There's that tyre bundle I've spoken about on the pit lane exit. And away Bargwanna goes with new rear tyres off the back of some strong performances in the recent past. Courtney still leads. Jason Bright is 2nd. Garth Tander is now up to 3rd as Dean Canto peels off. Interesting little battle developing here between Stephen Richards and Craig Lowndes. 6th and 7th. Campbell Little just urging Craig Lowndes to micromanage the anti-roll bars in the car and the brake bias, just shifting the percentage there. As the weight of fuel burns off on the rear of the car, you can afford to take a little of the braking percentage away from the rear and turn a little more to the front. When the car is heavier, you can carry a little more rear brake bias percentage. Little moment there for Stephen Richards. You saw the car twitching just as he turned in at turn 7.
It's a good race.
Yeah, very good race, and Lowndes then choosing to hold the car in 4th gear through turn 8, just rattle away on the rev limiter. Just on the rev limiter in 5th before he slams on the brakes for this hairpin left hand at 50 kilometres an hour. Courtney's got 5.5 seconds now over Jason Bright. They're playing the long game, hoping that something will happen to give them a free kick and move them up the field. They have got clear air.
Rick Kelly's buying a bit of time into Craig Lowndes' position ahead of him. On corrected, that's for positions 5 and 6.
Remember that when I spoke to Stephen prior to the race and we raised the question, how do you manage this race? What do you do when there's a championship contender around you? And the answer really was, we just do what we do. So he needs the results. They want the points. They've got a job to do. So if Craig is going to be able to do anything here, he's going to have to put a good solid move on. Right now, he doesn't really have extra pace. He's got about identical pace to Richards.
At 135 starts now in the championship, Craig Lowndes, just 33 years of age. 3 titles already, but wants one for the Blue Oval. Comes into this round 20 points adrift of Garth Tander on the table.
Expect James Courtney in very soon. He's now out to nearly 6 seconds over Jason Bright. Big lock up there for Rick Kelly over the hump at turn 1. The other problem here for Lowndes is sitting in that hot air trail being generated by Stephen Richards. It bumps up the brake temps, It bumps up the water temp. It also blinds you a little for your ideal braking point and your turning references. Sixth. Big bump there just as you start the solid braking into turn 7. And that customary driving style of Craig Lowndes, who turns in a little earlier than some of the other drivers, points the car at the apex. Here's Courtney. Bright's now the race leader.
Good stuff, guys.
Just trying to make the most of a tough situation at Geraldine Stone Brothers Racing, hoping to try and get James at least halfway up the field. Oh, and off the road, Todd Kelly at turns 1 and 2 rejoins.
Covers his position too for Shane Price, with Greg Murphy taking advantage there. So Murph gained a position out of that. It's right up behind Todd Kelly. Bright, the only man yet to pit.
Yeah, interesting to notice whether that off was in part what Todd's been complaining about, and that is some steering problems. He doesn't know whether it's a problem with the rack. The team have been having a look at it. Possibly it's the rear tyre starting to come up to pressure. Interesting one to watch.
Well, in the end, it was a good save for position. Todd Kelly.
Didn't get any rest though, did he? It was back on and get on with the job because he was getting attacked.
Tell you what, Shane Price is getting maximum attack from Paul Dumbrell in the super cheap auto car. Marcus Marshall behind him.
Remember I said the hope for Courtney was to somehow be in the midfield, which gives you a fighting chance for race 2. He's 17th at the moment with still Jason Bright to pit. So 16th, if he can make another spot or 2 maybe, then better chance tomorrow of trying to get to home base in race number 2. But when you have one of those shocker qualifyings, invariably it's race 3 before you see daylight.
Jason Bright completes the field of those 2 stop. And that means now we've got a corrected order.
Certainly, in some cases, different people in the paddock have got the view, and different touring car championships around the world have run this configuration at different times, where your grid for the subsequent race is not based on the finishing order of the previous, that you qualify for each race, and then you don't have the situation where you're buried and some of the guys don't dig their way out until race 3.
Talking about digging, Russell Ingall did a bit. The inside of turn 2 there as well. They come in 2 abreast. Marcus Marshall, Paul Dumbrell, and Courtney just sits back and waits at turn 5.
It's got a bit of potential for some paint shifting here between these 3.
Dumbrell's making a pretty good charge back up the list. He started from 12th, slotted down to 14th. Now that's where he finds himself in this battle. Remember, the super cheap auto team as it currently stands will be disbanded for 2008. Keys Wheel selling the licence there, and it means Dumbrell and Cam McConville will find themselves at new homes.
Tander's got a 4-second margin over Jamie Whincup, 1.8 seconds. Then back to Mark Winterbottom, Stephen Richards, Craig Lowndes, Rick Kelly. So again, let's think championship. Tander leads. Whincup is 2nd. Lowndes is 5th. Rick Kelly is 7th. Oh, Courtney down the inside. And nearly done, but not quite. In fact, it's going to go on for another 400 or 500 metres here. But provided he gets a good run, Courtney will have the run for turn 7.
We can stop and watch it if you like, Neil, and in the meantime, feel free to interrupt. This is an interesting battle heading down into here, but I heard you talk about the brakes and sitting behind with the temperatures of Craig Lowndes' car in behind Stephen Richards. We've talked about brake rotor temperatures at different tracks, anywhere between 850 and 900 degrees. The readings on both 888 cars at times heading into the hairpin, believe it or not, 1,000 degrees Celsius.
I would believe it. This used to be the toughest on the tour for many, many years in terms of brake stress and temperature. And then Indy on the Gold Coast became another place where they take a hammering, and more recently Bahrain as well.
this is how it stands now in the championship when we add the points that they've got currently for this race. So Tander, Lowndes, Whincup and Rick Kelly. The order stays the same as when they started this race, but the difference is now 31 points between first and second. It was 20 when we started race one here, so we'll keep an eye on that. Tander currently got 24 points next to his name. Whincup has 20. Lowndes has 13 and Rick Kelly has 12.
And if it did stay like that, the advantage for Garth in that scenario is that it gives him one win clear of anybody. It's just a little buffer. You're certainly not out of jail, but it just eases the pressure ever so slightly. So Tander at the moment, 3.9 seconds, and possibly, question mark, underline, on target for race win number 13. You never count them too early in this caper.
Question mark, underline, bold. You put every disclaimer you can find there. As far as those of race wins, as you mentioned, Garth would be aiming for number 13, well and truly ahead.
It's interesting because things change so rapidly in this business. Think about the last race meeting 2 weeks ago on the other side of the world in Bahrain. This fellow was absolutely untouchable. Ford Performance Racing, Mark Winterbottom just put it in gear and bolted down the road. It was all over. Come down here, clearly very, very competitive, but doesn't have the advantage. It's a week-to-week proposition, tuning the car, matching it to the conditions. Jason Bright looking for space down the inside at the hairpin and resulting in a little bit of contact here. And that's Owen Kelly just managing to save the day. Nice bit of speedway driving there, a bit of opposite lock, a bit of sprint car action.
Righty helped him around the corner and then gave him a shove along the way. Good skill from Owen Kelly to hold on to that one. You're right about this bloke, he was just simply untouchable in Bahrain from pole position. Away he went. Races 1 and 2. Craig Lowndes, of course, took out race 3. That was the first time all season that Ford had won all 3 races in the sprint rounds. And if you're keeping a check on the overall rounds of red versus blue, well, the blue team has 5.
15 to go.
And the remainder, of course, belonging to Holden.
Sector splits at the moment. Tander's got just the tiniest little margin on Whincup, but I suspect he's in a solid rhythm now and would not be interested in trying to find the last millisecond for fear of doing what happened before, which was jump off the bumps and off the curb down there at turns 1 and 2. On board now with Craig Lowndes. He sits in 5th.
Which is where he started. Ahead of him, Stephen Richards. Started 6th. He's made up the 2 spots.
15 remaining, Craig. 15 remaining. Kelly's catching you slowly.
And just as we suspected, Winterbottom and Richards are a couple of extra ring-ins that are just splitting up the championship contenders. Tander and Whincup 1 and 2. Lowndes and Kelly 5 and 6. With Frosty and Stephen Richards 3 and 4, the meat in the sandwich.
Now the cloud clearing here and taking the rain clouds away is a double bonus. The track temperature's warmed up 5 degrees since the start of the race. It's now 31 degrees on the track. Dunlop considers that's the optimum temperature for the tyres on this circuit, so conditions good.
Safety car is going to be deployed. There's a problem somewhere, a big problem somewhere. So the field's going to compress. Where is it?
Pick up this lap though, mate.
It's all clear down there at 1 and 2.
See the yellow flags on the right-hand side. Escape brings it up, and there's the problem. Jack Daniels' entry of Marcus Marshall, car number 11, has hit the wall.
He's having trouble getting reverse, and
that's down at the bottom of the hairpin.
yeah, just on the outside down there.
Or is it Shane Price? We'll find out soon enough. It'll be Shane Price. That's who it was, car 7. So correction on that. Shane Price didn't get the wall. He just got nudged out of the way and stuck on the outside as James Courtney did most of the infringing there. So just panel damage for Shane, but the safety car brings it out. Now, when that safety car came onto the circuit, Garth Tander had a 3.8 second lead over Jamie Whincup.
I think John Bow separates Tander and Whincup on the road, but out of position at the moment. At this point in the race, everybody's starting to feel a lot of brake stress through their car. We are on lap 38 of 50. Some drivers reporting that their brake performance is diminishing pretty quickly. And when you think about the numbers we heard before, where brake temps are peaking at 1,000 degrees, it's pretty warm. That's brakes well done.
Control the start, mate, maintain that gap. And just try and put a little bit of a gap. You've got to put pace over Whincup, so no risks. Righto, how many laps to go? 13, mate, 13 laps.
Stay on top of everything. John Bow goes into pit lane as well, and off we go. Tander versus Whincup. Winterbottom third. Stephen Richards is fourth. Craig Lowndes is in position 5.
Geez, Garth just absolutely bolted at the beginning. In fact, for a minute I held my breath that it might have been a little bit too eager. But he has disappeared to the extent of 1.5 seconds over Jamie Whincup as he crossed the control line.
There's Rick Kelly in 6th. Tom Kelly just pulls across to the left-hand side of the circuit, heading up towards the back straight. So the contenders for the title, Tander leads us, well and truly leads us. Whincup second. The other contenders for the championship, Lowndes and Kelly 5th and 6th. And as Neil said, the FPR car's in between them.
Car number 4, James Courtney, black flag and pit lane drive-through for a driving infringement on Shane Price. So that is a double whammy, a poor qualifying, and then got up to 13th in the field, Courtney, and now will end up basically last. We did raise our eyebrows in here at the block pass down the inside. 2 Rockstar cars together. No, they're not rock stars, but their sponsor is Rockstar.
They're Kiwi rock stars, Richo and Murph.
They think they're rock stars.
They want to be.
No, they're good blokes. And they are in 10th and 11th at the moment, Jason Richards and Greg Murphy.
Well, Shane Price, a tough day at the office. She was sitting in 13th place.
Yeah, look, it's absolutely frustration. Unfortunately, this is the way motor racing games. It's a real pain that someone like James Courtney, with probably that fair bit more speed than me at that particular time, has to come storming up and throw the race away for not only me but him as well.
Well, the news is he just received a black flag.
Yeah, sorry, what was that?
Just received a black flag, James Courtney.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, he deserves it.
All right, mate, all the best.
Thanks, mate.
I think the most telling thing of that little interview there was Shane Price's face.
He's hot.
It just shows you how hot it is. He's always got a smile, though. I'll give him that much. Even though he's on the limiter after that one. So James Courtney's done his time in pit lane. Garth Tander is adding time to his lead here. Remember, it was almost 4 seconds when the safety car was called upon. Garth has got it out to 2 seconds over the course of the first couple of laps.
He made 1.5 of that as a result of this. He's kind of hung back a little bit from the safety car at turn 7, and then he had this slingshot and
But remember also there, see, John Bow was in front
yes,
of Jamie as well.
but it was one of those things where that shot initially you thought, ooh, GT, but he was okay. But it was a really good job, but it was down to the millimetres in the end. And a few years ago, an Indy 500 was lost in that manner back in the mid-90s by just jumping the safety car a fraction too quick. That one was nicely judged, but he wouldn't want to be too much more eager.
His lead's 2.5 seconds now, and looks as though he's going to add on that lap after lap. So the results as they stand at the moment, with Tander first, Whincup second, Lowndes 5th and Kelly 6th, will not change the order of the top 4 in the title race as Stephen Richards
Big mistake.
locks her up.
Yeah, he's going to be vulnerable to attack down here now. When they get down to the hairpin, he just managed to block off that gap to Craig Lowndes and perhaps stop Craig's run down the inside, but Richo was all tangled up over 1 and 2 at the hump. Rick Kelly's just waiting to pounce here.
As I said, it doesn't change the order of the top four. It'll still be Tander, Lowndes, Whincup and Kelly on the championship. But Tander has extended his lead out in front. However, this race is not over and done with yet. 8 laps to go. Stephen Richards trying to fight off Craig Lowndes. Rick Kelly, 1 position behind them. And Mark Scaife is inside the top 10 in 7th.
Somebody else having trouble this time. It was Stephen Johnson with the Dunlop tyre howling in the background. Courtney's discussing the likelihood of actually coming in now, maybe looking after the car and the tyres, considering that he's right at the back of the field. He might have another issue as well.
No other issue, Neil. It's just that they're out of the points. I just heard the radio chat. They said, look, we're out of the points. Bring it in. We'll make a change. There's a few laps left to see if that change works to make some gains tomorrow.
Probably not a bad plan. At 27th at the moment, so the difference between 27th and 31st is so what?
Around turn 8, you're looking out the rear of Mark Scaife's car. In the distance, Stephen Johnson. Turns 1, 2. Under the bridge.
This little rundown here is good for about 240 kilometres an hour, then down to first gear. It descends quite noticeably. Great spot to watch the cars down there and watch the drivers coordinate the huge stop, the gear shifting and then hitting their line and getting out the other side cleanly. Good gear shifts and making sure they manage the traction and look after the right rear tyre. Then it's 260 odd on a day like today with a tailwind down the back straight, 100 Ks across here and then building up 200 kilometres an hour right there just before you put your foot on the brake, and you've got to vary your brake pressure to get over the hump. Down at 1, so a little change, little adjustment here being made. They'll check, that's normal procedure to check the tyre pressures. When they're hot, come in and see whether their cold starting pressures were a good guess. Well, it's not a guess, it's far more educated than that. 2.2 seconds, Garth Tander to Jamie Whincup. And Lowndes is just half a second behind Richards at the moment. Of the key runners, he's the closest to his next rival. These fellas that we're looking at the moment, Jason Richards and Greg Murphy, 10th and 11th. They're in front of Todd Kelly, just behind Will Davison.
Pretty flash-looking scheme, really, isn't it? Paired up together in front of them, the 2 DJR cars. The Jim Beam livery is paired up together as well.
Max Wilson off the road, unfortunately, in car number 8. Easily done around this racetrack. He's down in 26th at the moment.
So what do we got? 4 laps to go. Bargwana, contact, Team VOC car. Simon Will's got a nudge along.
Shane Van Gisbergen in behind. He's 24th in the Team Kiwi car. Remember the technical relationship that Team Kiwi has with Stone Brothers Racing, and so just like the Caltex in the Geraldine car, he was also drowning in qualifying with a lack of car speed. So he's worked his way up just a little bit, but it will still be a bit frustrating. It also puts you in a very busy pack when you're at the rear of the field. 2.4 seconds the gap, Tander to Whincup, Winterbottom third, Richards, then Lowndes and Kelly. The order remains the same. Cando looking for the crisscross on Andrew Jones. Might sneak up the inside by the time they get down to turn 7 here. I think he will. On the dirty side of the road, though, it's a little harder from there, but he does have position. So Andrew's got 1.5 tons of hold on the inside to negotiate. It's not that easy to resolve that problem.
That gives Dean Canto position 20.
Tanner's just eased the gap a little bit on that lap. He pulled 2/10 on Whincup. Ooh, that's a big one for Max. Pulled up just shy of the gravel down there.
Take a look at this lead for Garth Tander.
Looks solid, doesn't he?
Very, very solid. Almost 3 seconds clear of Jamie Whincup. He looks solid himself.
He's going to make another 3/10 on Jamie this lap. He's out to 3 seconds now. So it's the last lap. He's broken their spirit in this one. He had a little heart flutter in the middle.
He's also broken a spell of 4 straight race wins for the Blue Oval. They did 3 straight in Bahrain, and Stephen Richards won the last one at Indy. Garth Tander won the first 2 there, so he's brought the General back into it at exactly the right time. Hasn't had it all his own way, but he's just done it brilliantly.
Mega job, GT, mega job.
That's why he loves Symmons Plains. Points in the bank for our championship leader. So too for Jamie Whincup. Another podium for Mark Winterbottom, Richards 4th. Then the other championship contenders, Lowndes 5th and Rick Kelly in 6th. The top 10 includes Skaith, Stephen Johnson, Will Davison and Jason Richards.
That's a win number 3 in 4 race starts for Garth Tander at this track. The margin at the end was 3.2 seconds Tander over Whincup. And just rocking the car gently from side to side to minimise the amount of rubber pickup on those tyres as he brings them back in, because they'll recycle some of those tyres into races 2 and 3.
It's pretty warm out there by the looks of it, mate. Yeah, mate. Yeah, bloody on. That water bottle has about 5 laps and that's it.
That's a good reason to end up hot.
That's as dominant as you'd like to be when you've got the championship lead to hold on to. Garth Tander does it by 3.2 seconds over Jamie Whincup and Mark Winterbottom. Stephen Richards and Craig Lowndes make up the top 5, and as I mentioned, Rick Kelly also inside. You said at the very top of this program that all these guys had to finish top 6 to all stay in the mix. That's exactly what's happened. Down to 15th we find Steve Owen. A good performance from Marcus Marshall, who slots into the drive from Jack Perkins and puts himself in the points in car number 11. John Bowe in his race 1 of the final 3 here at Symmons Plains ends up well and truly out of it in 27th position. Garth Tander, he's getting used to this. 13 race wins now for season 2007. And there's a couple of places along the way this season that he's really loved. WA was one of them. New Zealand was another. Queensland Raceway, and of course here at Symmons Plains. But this is a good fight back too from Team Vodafone, and Jamie Whincup had a terrible time in Bahrain.
It's points for him after that drought. You would not have put money on the fact that he'd come away from Bahrain without a single point. So he's managed to get out of those doldrums, which is great.
It's also great for this man, Garth Tander. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Car was absolutely excellent, and made a small mistake at the start for a pit stop and let Frosty through, but guys did a great stop, got us back in front, and car was absolutely excellent. Looked after its tyres, was very fast, so really happy with that one.
Looked after its tyres right through qualifying. It was an absolute jet of a thing too. We all talked about the gap that Mark Winterbottom pulled on the field at Bahrain. It was very reminiscent of that looking up, even after a safety car.
Yeah, I got a really good restart. I think there's a lap car between Jamie and I, and got a really good restart, and opened the gap a bit on the first lap and just put my head down and tried to get a bit of a gap so that we could look after the car for the rest of the race, and it worked really well. So 2 more tomorrow.
You were probably the one last year who probably should have won the championship. There were a couple of things that got taken away. Firmly now in focus with only a few races to go.
Yeah, still 5 races to go though. And if last couple of rounds prove anything can happen. So we'll just take it one race at a time.
Thanks, Garth. Good luck for tomorrow.
Thank you.
Cheers.